Kelly, we're so excited you're on the show today. I've personally been a big fan of your work for years. I actually was thinking, when did the Heal documentary come out? Was that 2016, 17?
December of 17. So really like 18.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So that long ago, I feel like it was the other day. I was watching it with my mom, but I love the work that you're doing and your book. And actually, when I was prepping for this interview, I was so curious. What was your introduction to alternative forms of healing? Because from my understanding, you didn't really have a specific health crisis that pushed you to fall into this world. So where did that come from?
Yeah, it's a great question. My mom saw a chiropractor growing up, and she played soccer when, she's probably my age now. But I think my first introduction, whether I was like aware of it or not, I played soccer from age 5 on and played club and year round and all the competitive teams. And I started, I think in high school or junior high, I started having to wear knee braces, like the wetsuit material, just for support. Like my knees were out, which made sense because I was running all over the place all the time, but not really because I was a healthy kid eating McDonald's, Yeah, So I went to my mom's chiropractor and he adjusted me. He said, it's actually not your knees, it's your hips. Your lower back is out. And I have scoliosis, like a slight S curve. And then when he adjusted me, like no longer had knee issues, no longer needed to wear knee braces. So I think that was the first like ding, And then shortly thereafter in high school, this follows up actually with the chiropractor. My glands got really swollen after a camping trip. And, mind you, I was drinking alcohol and slept in a bush with out in the cold. And I came home and I was, really sick for a week. And after I got better, my glands didn't go down. And it was the time, I think all the time in high school, there's the chance of mononucleosis, but it wasn't like I was kissing a bunch of boys. And they tested me, I had basic insurance. So we went to Kaiser. They tested me for mono, Epstein-Barr, threw every antibiotic at it. Nothing was helping my glands go down. So cut to like 6 months later, they decided to do a lymph node biopsy because they were like the size of golf balls. And so I went under general anesthesia and they cut, inch incision in my neck, and all the results came back inconclusive. They're just like, oh, they're just swollen lymph nodes, like an infection that is having trouble clearing. And so I was like, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense. It's great that it's not anything worse. Then I went back to my mom's chiropractic appointment with her one day, and he felt my glands and he said, why don't you swig some apple cider vinegar twice a day for the next week and see if it goes down. And sure enough, in like 8 days, after like a year of tests and antibiotics and major surgeries, like my glands went down. So it just needed a little help, alkalinizing or whatever it was to move the infection out. And so then I think that got me skeptical of Western conventional medicine, or knowing that there's so much more than, the conventional path.
So then what happened after that kind of got you interested in all of these teachers that were talking about essentially mind-body healing and other forms of healing?
I was an actor my whole life. I grew up in South LA and Long Beach, and very early on, people were like, oh, you should be in commercials. So my mom would drive me to auditions. And all of this to say, like in my 20s, I was still acting. But I wasn't there was blocks. And so I started researching like what's in the way, just like spiritual questioning and like, why am I not having the success that I feel so pulled and called to do, and achieve. So I was just trying to figure out like what's in my way. And that led to like spiritual texts and self-help, personal development. Then I think I started meditating at around 2007. I was going to yoga classes at Equinox, and one of the yoga teachers, Light Watkins, was starting to teach meditation on the side. So I went to a meditation class with him and 4 days of learning transcendental meditation. And then that led me to go to Agape International Spiritual Center. And then they have a bookstore. So I'm like, oh, and then I saw the movie The Secret and learned about the law of attraction. And so it just kind of like woke me up to this idea that we are co-creators with life, and our thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and frequency really do kind of affect, determine, magnetize the reality that we're experiencing. It was a long and winding journey. I wish it was a more like aha moment, but it was just that I was trying to figure out why I wasn't getting the success that I felt And that just led me on this personal development journey, and which led me on this spiritual journey. And then all of these teachers that I encountered along the way, whether through a book or on stage at Agape or in The Secret, just, empowered me so much that I wanted to put all my teachers in a film ultimately and just empower others.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that film, and I can relate so much to your story because we both, Yasmin is still in LA. I used to live in LA, learned transcendental meditation from Light Watkins, went to Agape. Yeah. So we've definitely like been in the same circles for sure, and feel like the energy of all those powerful teachers. It's just amazing. So let's talk about the making of this documentary. You made Heal, which if anybody hasn't seen it, is so incredible. And it showcases the stories of so many people who have used alternative forms of healing and mind-body healing. There's stories of kind of spontaneous remission or spontaneous healing in the documentary as well. So at what point did you decide, I'm going to make a documentary about this?
I was like running marathons at the time. So I was training and running for 7 to 10 miles, or like 4 to 10 miles any given day. And so I would have a lot of time. So I was just inundating my psyche with, Abraham Hicks or Wayne Dyer, Eckhart Tolle, or driving to an audition, sitting in traffic. So I was just really like immersed in the consciousness and energy of all these teachers. And so people started, and then I took one of the biggest tools that I took from The Secret was gratitude journaling. And so because I'm such a journaler, my whole life I have like journals. And so people kept coming up to me saying, how are you manifesting all this great stuff? How are you so healthy? What do you eat? What do you do? This is before social media. So just so many people kept coming to me, and I was just like, I just have to put all my teachers in a film. So I had like the seminal idea. And then I read Bruce Lipton's book, The Biology of Belief. And I was like on a stair climber or something at Equinox. And I was like, oh my God, we are not victims of our genes. Like they're just blueprints and plans. And then we decide which switches we turn on and off. Like everybody needs to know this. So then I kind of switched to health, and healing, and just the incredible potential of the human body. And then after that, where I was like, I want to put them in a film, kind of like The Secret, but in my own way, it still took another like 4 years. And then I read Anita Morjani's story, and I was like, okay, game on, I'm ready.
Yeah. Can you share that story? Because I know that it was essentially the catalyst for all of this, and it's such a powerful story.
Yeah, I love Anita Morjani's story because she is literally the poster child of possibility. She grew up in Hong Kong, but from a Hindu family tradition. And so she was exposed to all this Western culture, but she was still in a very traditional, where there's arranged marriage and all of that. And so she always had this conflict because she didn't feel that was right for her. So she ended up disappointing her parents and not going the arranged marriage route, and brought a lot of shame to her parents and her culture and her community. And so there was that wound and discord with her father. Then she, married for love. And then her best friend died of cancer. So then she had all this fear around cancer. And then she got diagnosed with cancer. And she, because of her Hindu background, she did go to India and do some, of the ancient traditional medicine. And then she also came at it with conventional medicine because it was, stage 4 lymphoma, I think. Fast forward, she's at the end of her life in a coma in the hospital. They can't even find a vein because just her organs are failing. And she's got lemon-sized tumors from her neck to her abdomen that's like coming out of her skin. Like she's just physically wasted away. No one could look at her and believe that she could come back to life and recover and heal. She's like, if there was a stage 5, that would be it. So her doctors were telling her husband to get her affairs in order. Her brother was flying in from, India or Hong Kong or wherever he was. And she had this near-death experience, left her body, and, had this all-encompassing awareness, omniscience that, where her brother was in the moment. She was aware of conversations going down the hall that physically her ears in a coma could not hear. So she had this all-knowing awareness, and she went into this other realm, like this, air quotes, heaven, if we could call it anything. And she encountered the essence of her father. And in that encounter, all she felt was this just like huge, expansive love that is, beyond human understanding. Like we couldn't describe this love in words. And she felt there was only love between her and her father. There was no judgment, discord, anything that they experienced in life. And so she just had this awareness in that moment that she got cancer because every decision she ever made was out of fear instead of love. And so her father was like, your journey, your purpose is not finished. You need to go back into your body, and these were not in words. It was almost like just a knowingness, telepathy. And she said, I feel fantastic up here. I don't want to go back in that cancer riddled body. But she knew that if she did go back, she would heal. And so she went back into her body. And within, she woke up, she talked to doctors that she hadn't met before her coma and knew their names, knew conversations they had down the hall, could describe her brother's plane flight in, like all these things that she couldn't possibly know. And she kept telling the doctors, I'm going to heal, I'm going to heal. And they were like, okay, lady, and then within 3 weeks, all the cancer gone from her body and her body completely recovered. So that to me shows the power of consciousness. And she just had a shift in consciousness, and that had a massively spontaneous physical. So if it's possible for her to recover, I just truly believe it's possible for anybody to recover. And when I heard that, I've just had this like fire under me. Like I have to share her story and I have to tie it all together to inspire others that like, if it's possible for one, it's possible for all.
Gosh, that is so powerful. I have like full body goosebumps just listening to that. It's just wild. And I love that you said the power that we all have to shift our consciousness, and like what a gift that we can, hopefully start thinking about that in this state versus, God forbid, being in her situation in cancer stage 4. So what are some of the preliminary things that people can take away? You mentioned a few, like the gratitude journal for you was huge, listening to Bruce Lipton's work. But, someone who's not familiar with his work, maybe what are some of the simple things that they can do today to kind of get into that mindset to start shifting their consciousness? Because like you said in the beginning of the interview, it is a journey and it does take time.
Man, I think intention is the very first thing. So the intention of, okay, like just say someone's dealing with a diagnosis, the intention of, I want to heal. Set that out there. Ask, whatever faith you have, ask the universe, God, spirit, like ask, like, I want to heal. Show me the way, show me the path. Like, and when you ask and believe, you will receive. So, you will be connected if you're open and you set the intention and you believe, the right teachers, the right books, the right information for you will show up. So you have to intend, remain open, and then surrender. Just really like allow it to unfold the way it's meant to unfold, because the first step in healing is always surrender. And so much of us resist because we want things to be a different way. And that resistance causes stress, which shuts down our healing capacity because we're in, the sympathetic nervous system. It's really surrendering and trusting that everything, that life is happening for you, not to you. So that's the first mindset shift. And if we stay in victimhood, we are disempowered, and we need our power to heal. So of course we're human. Of course we can say, why me? Woe is me. But don't stay there. Let the feelings come, scream, cry, do all the things, and then surrender and say, okay, what now? Show me the way. Yeah. I would you seek out all the proof in the impossibility. And you have to, I do think heal is a great launch pad, because it gives examples of a possibility and kind of explains why it could possibly work with epigenetics and quantum physics and energy. And so I think my mission is always to empower people with information and then show them examples so that their belief expands. It just was so clear to me that when I set out, people just because of our conditioning in society, people equate cancer with death. And so you just pour fear onto people when they get that diagnosis. And sadly, even just 7 years later, when I started making the film, cancer exploded. And there's a million different causes of cancer, the toxins in our environment, suppressed emotions, unresolved trauma, energy, inner terrain, all of the things. And everybody's journey is different. So really we give in the film, Kelly Turner did research on radical remissions, and there have been cases in every single type of cancer of people healing. So even if the statistics tell you that it's unlikely or terminal or impossible, that's not true. The truth is anything is possible. And why not you be that shift in statistics? So yeah, I guess that's just the beginning. There's so much you need to do on a healing journey, and no healing journey is the same. You really have to tap into your own intuition. I just interviewed on the Heal podcast on Saturday, a woman that stage 4 breast, like the aggressive HER2 breast cancer diagnosis 2 years ago. And then later it went to her brain. And now she's in radical remission. And she went about it she's a mindset coach. So she, put her action like where her mouth is. Like she is now in a radical remission from aggressive stage 4, 2 types of cancer. So that's exciting. So again, she's just all about finding proof that it's possible to expand the belief in that possibility and then following your intuition.
You mentioned that, Anita. You said that she was making decisions based out of fear and not love. And I'm wondering, while you were making this documentary, and since then have probably heard thousands of people share their story with you, how common is that in this illness journey, that people are kind of coming from a place they realize? Because when I heard you say that before in another interview, I was like, how often do I do that? Like, it really makes you think, how often am I making decisions out of fear rather than love? Was that a common theme that you heard from these individuals?
It is. The spiritual book that woke me up, I think, on my journey was when I was 19. I was given Marianne Williamson's book, Return to Love, because I was raised Catholic and didn't really I love Jesus and the stories that he emulates. And I do believe he was a mystic that was showing us the way that we all have the same power that he does. I think that was the message that he was trying to share. Not that he and only he is the Son of God, but don't want to offend anyone. That's just my resonance. So parts of Catholicism were deeply resonant and other parts weren't. And so I think in high school, I went away and I was just kind of questioning if there was God. And then I was given this book, Return to Love. And Marianne Williamson addresses it in the same way. It's like you create heaven or hell on earth in your life experience. And if you come from fear, you'll create, hell. If you come from love, you create heaven. So when Anita said that, it just really resonates with me. It's as truth with a capital T. And then there's also a guy, Jeffrey Thompson, who's, kind of works with sound. And he's this genius. I think we call him the neuroacoustic wizard in the film. He talks about, disease begins when you're on that path in life and you go off the path of your soul. And it's usually because you make a decision out of fear, because you're following what society says you should do or your parents say you should do. And when you start, make that decision, that's when dis-ease happens, because you're not in alignment with your truth. So yeah, I think and especially now that concerns me, because social media and corporate run media, it's because they want to hook your attention to sell products or whatever it is, they're hooking you with fear. And so no wonder, obviously there's toxins and chemicals that are contributing as well, but there's a epidemic of fear happening as well to hook your attention so that you are on your device more or glued to the television more so they could sell more products and earn more advertising dollars,
And especially to younger and younger people, which is really unfortunate, because I remember growing up and feeling like I just felt all love as a kid. I wasn't thinking about what society thinks of me, but now it's different, right? In adolescence with teenagers, they have all these outside pressures. They're constantly thinking about keeping up with the Joneses or keeping up with whatever their friends are doing. And then you see more and more rates of mental illness and depression and anxiety amongst kids. So it definitely makes me very sad.
Yeah. I don't know that I would have survived if we had social media back then. You know what I mean? Adolescence is hard, just at a baseline. Hormones, growing into your individuality and discovering who you are. To layer that on, I feel for the kids these days.
I want to go back to one thing you mentioned around intention. I love that, how you were saying that's really the first step in any kind of healing, is understanding your intention. And I know in your book, I forgot the gentleman's name. I don't know if he's a scientist, but he was basically talking about how we're 70% water and how our intentions, I'm probably crucifying his story, but I know you also find that super interesting. Can you maybe talk us through his connection between water and intentions and, I guess, humans?
Yes. I think you're referring to this guy, Dr. Masaru Emoto.
Yes,
He's no longer with us, but he was a scientist and he studied water. And essentially, and there's different versions of this experiment you can do with rice and with apples. And so he was fascinated with water and what frequency does with water, and water carries frequency. And we are 70%-ish water. The Earth, planet Earth, Gaia, Mother, is 70%-ish water. So there's a lot of macro, micro parallels here. And his experiment was he would take bottles of water and then he would put a frequency into them based on like a label. So one label would say love. And so then he would, he's like, say love onto that bottle of water. So that water was getting the frequency of love because language is very powerful. And language carries frequency. So then he would, on the other bottle, he would put hate, and that just saying that word, the energy shifts in your body. Then he would freeze the water and look at the frozen particles under the microscope. And for the love water, it was these like harmonic, symmetrical, beautiful crystals. And then under the hate water, they were just like disjointed and crystals, and there was no geometry to them at all. It was just like chaos. And then he did it with music. So like Beatles, love music, and then like heavy metal, death metal music. It was the same kind of thing. You could imagine the crystal structures from those. And so, it just goes to show like if we are water and our cells are water, and that frequency of language that we are, our thoughts and the language we say to ourselves through our thoughts. So we look in the mirror and we're saying, God, we're so fat, or God, I wish I was taller, I wish I wasn't this color, whatever it is, like our cells hear that, and the frequency is then going to affect the structure and the function and the efficiency of those cells. So it's just, to me, it's just like really powerful. And that's why I think like affirmations work, but our beliefs and our thoughts really does affect the function of our bodies.
So true. I mean, just imagine what somebody tells you when you're younger and then it sticks with you for life. So if somebody else can tell you something and then you believe it about yourself, like imagine what you can tell yourself about yourself and then you start to believe it. And I remember, I think Joe Dispenza, my first introduction to him was the Heal documentary and this idea of mental rehearsal. And, his story is so powerful, how he had a motorcycle accident, I believe, and then broke so many bones in his body, was essentially paralyzed, and then used this concept of mental rehearsal, which is so powerful to kind of heal. Can you talk about what that is? It's something that I still practice to this day, and I think is so useful for people.
It's essentially creative visualization where the mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So the easiest example is like picture a lemon, like close your eyes, picture slicing open a lemon, the juice is flowing, and you kind of give it a squeeze. It's like spritzing in the air, and then you touch your tongue to that lemon. Like I know for me, like my mouth is puckering, like the back of my mouth, my tongue, like I'm getting the reaction as if there's a real lemon. So the mind is giving that reaction even though there's no real lemon. So that's the power of imagination. And Joe, he was on a bicycle in a triathlon road race, and he was a chiropractor at the time, and he got T-boned by a Bronco and broke his spine. Now, with his background and the knowledge of the spine, he had this like template to visualize very specifically. And he said, the doctors told him he'd probably never walk again, and he would need this Harrington rod surgery, which would put metal in his back for the rest of his life. And he knew, as a chiropractor, that would affect his mechanics and his vitality if he went and did that surgery. So he said, look, I can't do anything but lie here and heal. So I'm going to use my mind and just visualize my back healing. So he would do that. He would visualize his spine healing, and then he'd get distracted from fear, and he'd visualize himself in a wheelchair, and he's like, shit. So then he'd come back and he'd start over. And it took him a while, but he finally got through like however many, like 2 hours that it took to go through the whole spine and fix the spine without these thoughts of fear hijacking him. Then he realized, okay, that's visualizing. Then he would start to feel the things that he missed doing, like walking on the beach with a loved one or taking a hot shower, because again, he's like paralyzed, lying face down in bed. Like that's not a fun space to be in. And he can't even get up to go to the shower. So just the warm water. He would picture the feelings. He would feel the feelings, the elevated emotions of love, like being able to walk on the beach and just watching all these things he took for granted before when he was healthy. And he was just flooding his body with those positive emotions of gratitude, love, and just joy, you know? And so that's within 10 weeks, I think he was up, not only walking, but like running and training for the next triathlon. So miracle, he had the knowledge to do it, but what he discovered is it's not just using the mind, it's combining the mind with the heart and the elevated emotion. And that's the secret that he discovered. And now he guides people through these meditations, you know, for these advanced week-long retreats. And it's just getting the mind and the heart in coherence, and you completely shift the field around you. And the frequency that you are sending out, and then you're calling back to you new information from the field based on your elevated frequency. It's wild. They're doing all the scientific research to back it up and show the physiological and biological effects that these meditations take you through, but it's all based on that original experiment of himself combining, you know, the visualizing and then the elevated emotions. And that was like the manifestation, you know, secret.
Oh, I love his work. Have you been to one of those retreats?
I have. I just went for the first time, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm dying to go. How was it?
It was unbelievable. But I'll tell you, it's hard work. It's retreat is the wrong word. It's like, it's like boot camp. It is impossible to leave the same person.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's 5 days?
It's the week-longs are 7 days.
Wow. Does he have shorter ones, or is it all 7?
I think you could do a progressive retreat, which you could do online in order to qualify for the advance. I think a progressive retreat is 3 days. So yeah, you could do it in baby steps.
Got it. I know, Kea, we should go.
I know. I really want to.
It's amazing. It's really beautiful.
I've heard only incredible things. I know they sell out in like 2 seconds. So
yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, good to know.
So quickly.
You know, I'm curious, Kelly. We've talked about, you know, so many different people's experiences about the power of belief and visualization. What was your first maybe experience that you remember about, you know, I don't know what you want to call it, whether it's law of attraction or visualization for yourself? Because I always love hearing people's stories.
Oh yeah, this is very crystal clear. I love that it's an easy answer, because everyone's like, why did you make Heal? I'm like, well, there's not really, it's like a 25-year story. But this law of attraction, you know, I watched The Secret, I was working as a waitress, shocking, to support my acting habit at the time. And one of the bartenders handed me the DVD, back in the days of DVDs. And so I watched it and I was like, oh my gosh. So I was like, of course, this all makes so much sense. And so I started gratitude journaling. And I think it was, Bob Proctor. And he says, write in your journal as if you have the things you want already. So I'm so happy and grateful now that. So I just started doing that. And so all these things that I wanted, you know, to be financially free or to be able to like afford a massage and a chiropractor every week, you know, like all these things, like silly things, within 3 months. So it took 3 months of just like doing it. And you feel silly at first because you're like, well, these aren't really true, but you start to like feel into if they were true, and you just do the exercise and you get over how silly it feels, and you hope nobody reads your journal.
Yeah.
And
I know.
And in 3 months, I went on this casting call for a job I didn't even know existed. And it's called being a fit model. So basically clothing companies you're like a live mannequin, and they fit their clothes, their sample sizes on your body because you have the right proportions and shape or whatever. So it was for Guess jeans, and they wanted one fit model, but they couldn't find the right fit model for their dimensions. So they ended up hiring me as the butt, like the jeans. And they hired my girlfriend, Lindsay, who I became very close with at the time, for the tops, because she was like busty and more Guess than I was. So like, again, it was a job I'd never heard of. I booked it, and within I was starting to make triple my income on a part-time schedule. And they'd send me that all over the world, and it was just like wild. I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff really works. So I don't know. I was just like, I'm a believer because I saw it firsthand. You know, it was cool.
You know, it's funny. I love the gratitude journal. I've been keeping one of just like gratitude for the day, but I love the future tense. I've had a few friends mention that, so I'm going to steal that and add it because I definitely believe in it. And writing a list, I don't know if you want to say like manifested, but my husband, what I like would write down qualities of people who I wanted to meet. And I would go on these bad dates and I'm like, how can I make this joyful? Let me take one thing from each of these bad dates that I could like, everyone has a beautiful quality, right? So I would just add to the list as weeks and months would go by. And then I met my husband who's Kaya's brother. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I did not think I would meet someone. And truly, when I would read it every day, I'd add to it and think through it and really be intentional. I guess it's going back to being intentional about stuff, right? And ever since then, I like believe in everything. And I remember Joe Dispenza, I'm going off a tangent, but it just reminded me, I was listening to one of his videos. I will binge watch his YouTubes whenever I need inspiration. I love him. And he was like, when you're younger and like you go on a field trip, you wake up with so much excitement about like the unknown and how you're excited for the day. Like, what does it look like if you start your day in that way of like you wake up and you're open to the awe of what could happen, kind of like your job that you didn't even imagine there was a fit model or that could even be anything, but you were open to receive. And I was like, that's so amazing. Because usually we wake up and we go into work mode and planning. I got to do this. I got to eat. But it's like, how cool would it be to have the intention of what does life want to bring me today that you might not even envision? Like, I just think that's so cool. So I love
totally.
that.
As you're saying that, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, it's so simple. But if we just have that we implement every day, it's like, so, the unknown is what a lot of us are like searching for control because we're terrified of the unknown. And it's like, if we can just, again, all these shifts that you can make that can change your life are so on this edge of like subtle to profound. And like just that, waking up going, oh no, I'm excited for the unknown because I truly believe the unknown has gifts for me. And sometimes there'll be challenges, but there's a real gift in that challenge, right? So to have that childlike wonder and like, I love it so much.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, me too. I especially like think about it when it comes to finances. I know this is like a separate topic, but it's so applicable because I know a lot of people use the law of attraction when it comes to money. But ever since I was young, I've always just like kind of had this idea that the universe has my back, especially when it comes to money. Like I give and receive freely. And it's something that like I teach my husband now because he grew up in a family where it was just not even a possibility to be like an extremely wealthy person. Like it wasn't even in there. Like, what? We're not even going to think about that. That's for other people. Like we're in blue collar. This is kind of where we stay. And so it's been fun to kind of see him evolve into the way that I'm thinking and how much that has like opened up for him. So it's so cool to just see all the different ways that this can take place, whether it be romance or health or finances, like every aspect of our lives can be touched by this stuff. And I'm curious because I have a background in filmmaking too. So I want to know like about the behind the scenes a little bit. I heard an interview where you were kind of saying when it comes to some of these things like approaching the experts and stuff, you were a little more introverted than people might expect you to be like going out there like, hey, I'm making this, I'm doing this, like we're going to make it happen. I'm definitely a little bit of the same way, but how did you overcome that? Because it really feels like maybe some divine intervention occurred to make this particular thing happen.
Yes. I had been on like sets my whole life. So I was very comfortable like in the idea of like making a movie. I was like, okay, I know all the elements. But I had never directed before. And I'm the type of person that's like, I feel like I need to know every little thing. Like I need to take the class so that I'm confident. And I'd be going to Agape and Michael Beckwith would be like, if you've got the vision, the vision and the pull in your heart, like you have everything you need to make it happen. Like there's a reason that you feel so passionate about your dreams. Like pay attention to what lights you up and follow that and it will unfold. So when I was finally ready to make the film, I was like, oh gosh, I'm not really, I was insecure because I hadn't done it before. It was the unknown of how to make this film. But the knowing in my heart there was no question about that. I was like, I have to do this. And so because of that strong calling and because of the awareness, like if I have that passion and the calling, like I have everything it takes, even though my ego mind was like, you do not have everything it takes. You've never done this before. Like, who gives you the right to think that you could direct this film? So I just said, okay, I'm going to trust Michael. This feels right. And I just said, God, like, let it take the wheel. I say yes. So I just said yes. And everything kind of unfolded beautifully. and perfectly. And even just approaching the experts. What I did was because I go to Agape, I took classes with Michael, but I didn't feel comfortable like approaching him in that setting.
Yeah.
So I went to this Celebrate Your Life conference, and Marianne Williamson, Joe Dispenza, Michael Beckwith, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton.
Oh my God, amazing.
They were all there,
What
and
a dream.
It was a dream. It was a dream. Wayne Dyer, I think, was there. Oh no, Wayne wasn't there, but everybody else was there. And so I would just approach them after for their book signing. And I said, I've got this idea. I've got this deck. Like, can I send it to you? And then most of them give me their assistant's email. And then I would follow up. And then I had one mutual friend that knew Deepak Chopra. And so she's like, I'll just come down and see me in San Diego and I'll introduce you. And so we went into his office and I kind of pitched the vision in like 5 minutes. And he just said yes. Because I think he felt my energy, my intention was pure. And so the minute he said yes, then I followed up with everybody. And then they all kind of talked amongst each other because they're like, oh, are you going to do this? Because they're all in the same circle. And I think they're all at the stage of life where they just want to serve and they just want to give their information. So they felt better. And, but they get approached to do documentaries all the time. They've been in other documentaries that go nowhere. And so they're just like, okay, if we all do it together, it can't be, at least we're in it together. If it goes nowhere, they all started saying yes and it just unfolded. But then it still took me like a month and a half to get even confidence. Like I was so nervous the first interview. So really, like, you just have to fake it till you make it, truly. And then you just have to trust that, like, if you have the passion or the calling or the pull in your heart, you also have everything you need to realize that vision. There's a reason that energy and that passion and that dream was given to you specifically.
I love that.
They must have felt that from you because, like you said, they probably get approached so many times to do so many documentaries. There's probably so much inbound. And there had to be like that feeling from them that, oh, this is like this is the real deal, because they all agreed to do it. And that's amazing. Like you said, Bruce Lipton, Deepak Chopra, like these are some pretty heavy hitters, which is awesome. Is there any plans to extend this storytelling that you've done so far?
Yeah. A lot of people were like, we need more. We want Heal Too. And we did like a summit with some new people that we released with Hay House. We did 2 summits. The beautiful thing about all of these people is I then would interview them for the podcast or checked in with them a couple years ago or would run into them. And they were just like, isn't this amazing what Heal has done? Like Heal is just this thing. And they're all just like, they're all blown away that it's had the life that it's had. And so they're just so grateful, that's the best feedback, right? That they could be proud of something that I put them in. And so, recently I've never felt that I could do a Heal Too because it was such a 101. And then I just feel like it goes out and you just have to find what resonates from the film and go on your own deep dive. And there's just so many healers. Like, I just don't know how I could pick the right combination, because these were so personal to me. But I do feel like it could be a television series on just an ongoing investigation and exploration and exposure to what's out there, inspiring stories. Like, to me, it's just like a no-brainer Netflix series that is ongoing to like give people empowering information, expose just all the alternative therapies out there that could be complementary to conventional Western. It doesn't have to be in lieu of, and show inspiring stories to strengthen people's belief in possibility. Like that's just a no-brainer. So anybody listening, you want to help me make that show? Great. But recently I was in New Zealand on this really beautiful trip it was for my birthday a couple weeks ago. And just the connection of the people in the group was really powerful, like-minded and hearted. And something came up that could potentially be the subject of like, it's not a Heal Too, but it's in the same vein. And it was the first time in 7 years that I was like, oh yeah, that's it. So there's something brewing for sure.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Even just
you heard it here first. I haven't told
know.
Yeah. Breaking.
I love it. I mean, I love what you said, especially the way I operate in the world. Like when I see examples of what's possible in health and in business, it just turns on and it really takes me to another level of what's possible. So I love everything you're doing and I can't wait to kind of see how whatever is brewing unfolds. But it's so amazing also that you were open and you're aware of when you felt like something was there. And I love that because I think that's how I kind of found my passion. It took years of dabbling into different things to understand like, oh, I'm so passionate about supporting women, you know, in XYZ. And I've started businesses around that now. But I love just being open to it and being aware of what lights you up. Like what you're saying, Michael Beckwith was even saying, like when you have that feeling, like really double down on that because that's powerful. And I think so many people don't honor that feeling. At least I didn't for a long time. So,
and trust, like, you know, I had dedicated so much time to acting my whole life, really. And so when I started to go to Agape and I was meditating and, you know, inundating myself with all this personal development content, I started paying attention to the energy and I would get lit up. I could talk for hours about law of attraction and quantum physics and possibility. And then like, I could get excited about booking an audition, but like, I would never be excited like after filming on set because it was just like, there's all these people, the magic is gone. Like, so I just started going, oh my gosh, okay, so it's okay. Even though I've devoted 20 years of my energy and my intention and this vision of my life that I thought I was going to, you know, win Oscars and, you know, do the thing, like to have the faith and trust and awareness to go, oh no, my mission is more like, it's all about how I feel. It's all about the energy. So like, no matter how late in life you are, if you've been a lawyer your whole life, but there's this other cause that's lighting you up, like to really trust that your vitality and the universe is, if you honor that, like that's going to make you, that's your ease as opposed to dis-ease, you know? So follow what lights you up. So start to pay attention to like what gives you energy when you talk about it. Cause that's your signpost. It's like, go down this road.
Oh my gosh, I can relate to that so much. I went to film school. I remember being on sets. I remember thinking I was going to work in Hollywood. And one day I just got back from a set and I thought like, I'm drained and not in a good way. Everybody's smoking on set. They're eating crap. There's so much toxic energy. And then I was like, it's okay. It's okay that this dream that I had is just, it's not resonating with me anymore. And it kind of took on its own turn into women's health, as Yasmin was saying, and us starting our own business. And we both feel that what we're doing is like divinely protected because every step has been pretty easy in a good way. Like there's challenges, but we feel so supported. Like it just all works out. And I think those paying attention to those synchronicities or those signs, like Deepak Chopra says, is so important. I'm curious, like we talked about some of the things that people can start to pay attention to, but what are some things that you kind of see people doing that are maybe getting in the way of their healing? What are some like daily habits that people can start to pay attention to? Like this might be preventing me from living my highest truth or getting in the way of my healing.
The two biggest, I would say, are following someone else's journey and just ignoring what your body is telling you. So much, you know, there's influencers galore out there. And, you know, there's a million diets that you could follow that try. And like, everybody's like, oh my gosh, run away from gluten. Just, you know, there's these general blanket trends. And a lot of people just go, oh my gosh, it's working for X, Y, and Z. I'm going to try it. And then they ignore what their body is telling them. So like, I don't think everybody's meant to be a vegetarian, you know, and I've struggled with that because I think like spiritually, I'm like, well, maybe the most evolved can't eat meat because they're animals. And, you know, and I've had different conversations on each side. And then people with cancer actually like all of that to say we're so bio-individual and there's so many factors. So really your path, like you have to see what other people are doing and then you have to be your own laboratory. Your body is so intelligent. It will give you the feedback of what it needs. So it's about cultivating awareness. It's about slowing down enough to where you can hear what your body is trying to tell you and stop, you know, pushing through pain or ignoring how your belly and your body are reacting after different types of food and your energy. It's all about cultivating awareness. So look outside for examples, but then figure it out for yourself. And then, because truly like it's so bio-individual, it's, and your intuition, your body is so brilliant. It's going to tell you what it needs, you know, symptoms are feedback, symptoms are the language of the body. And we just have to learn that language. So that's that, you know, your journey is going to be your journey. Take what works from other people, but then really your body's going to tell you what it needs. And then the other thing I think is rigidity, which comes from fear. So like I love the kind of 80-20 rule, like 80% do your best to eat clean, avoid fried foods, all those things. But then like we need to enjoy life, we can have the ice cream. We can, obviously if you're in a healing crisis, this doesn't apply, but in general, like if you're in a healing crisis, you need to be rigid for a period. If you're trying to heal stage 4 cancer, juicing, vegetables, like all those things are going to be very important. And to take away the offending foods that are going to drain your energy and feed the cancer. When you're not in a healing crisis and you're just trying to figure out life or weight loss, like we have to bring the joy back in. The rigidity is part of the resistance and the fear that is going to contribute to the energy of disease or hold on to that weight, So it's really like giving yourself the grace and allowing, and then just really trusting. I'm not being very articulate here, but I think those are the two things, like rigidity and then doing something that works for someone else while ignoring what your body is telling you.
Love that. I think the trusting yourself, right? So much of us have forgotten how to do that, or we've just lost connection with our body, which is why I love what everybody is saying in the documentary, because it's all about like, how do you come home? How do you come back to your body? How do you be back in tune with your body so that you can trust that your body is doing what it needs to do? It's not making mistakes, and it'll guide you. And somebody said, your body is the best doctor in the room. It'll tell you what it needs and what it doesn't need. And so I feel like all of what you're talking about, your documentary is all about how people can come home to themselves. And I just love that. And I'm so excited for whatever you do next. I'll be the first person to watch it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly right. Coming home to ourselves. My whole thesis on healing is like spirit. It's like all healing is spiritual healing. There's the physical, emotional, mental aspect of it. But like if we can really believe that life is for us and happening for us, not to us. If we can really believe that the challenges hold a blessing and a lesson. All the people that I've interviewed that have healed from cancer look back after going through the fire and on the other side, none of them would change a thing, because even though it was excruciatingly terrifying and painful, the gifts far outweighed the challenges. And so to really trust that you came into this life for a reason, you have gifts to express, and life is going to like tap you on the shoulder, whisper in your ear, then they're going to start to scream a little louder with circumstances, pain, symptoms, etc., to get you back on course and to find that trust, And so I see my job is to like do all the healing I need to do to remember who I truly am, come home to myself, which is a perfect soul in an imperfect experience. And we are divine and infinitely potential beings having a human experience. And so as I remember and experiencing that, I just want to help remind other people of their divinity. So that they can come back home.
Oh, well, you did that for me. I'm already taking notes. I'm like, I'm going to rewatch Heal. I'm going to listen to more audiobooks. Like there's so many notes I took out through this interview, and it's stuff we know, but we do need to be reminded of, even as Kay and I interview people all the time, like we even need to be reminded. So thank you for doing all this work and healing so many people. But this was such a joy, Kelly. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for reminding me about waking up in the morning, like excited for the potential of the unknown, what's brewing. So thank you. Thank you guys so much for having me.